southeastern Europe, in place of the prehistoric Pannonian Sea, which has dried up and disappeared through centuries, a plain was born. And it is the plain that sparkles with beauty, unity and natural living harmony. A man is the fifth element. Right there, in that Vojvodinian plain, geographically ideal and strategic point of Europe, boroughs, villages and cities were built. Turbulent Serbian history, spiced up with bloody wars and 500,000 of Turkish region, for a moment was a turning point for birth and development of boroughs of the right Danube's shore. Petrovaradin borough, from which one of the most beautiful cities in Vojvodina, Novi Sad, emerged. Something even older than city of Novi Sad and from Petrovaradin borough is the Petrovaradin fortress.
According to the first data, a first human settlement was established here 4,500 years BC, at the place of the Petrovaradin fortress. But after archaeological discoveries, the history of this area was moved to the period of 19,000 till 15,000 years BC. 3,000 years BC, a settlement was established on Petrovaradin's cliff. While they were examining the remains of the settlement from the Young Bronze Age, archaeologists have discovered walls reinforced with poles and palisades from that age. They testified that settlement was established there in the Vučedol culture period, between 3000 and 2200 years BC. Some even question if the Neanderthals live in these areas. Many different cultures were intervened on the Petrovaradin rock. Around 100 years BC, the Celts colonized these territories, which have been overtaken 100 years after by the Romans, who established a border on the Danube and built Kuzum fortress that has been destroyed by the Huns. In the middle 13th century, almost at the same place, Catholic friars from the Cistercian order had settled there. The fortress got a greater significance with an increasing danger from a new conqueror, the Turks. Powerful Turkish Empire was spreading and threatening to vanquish Europe. The Turkish army assembled many times under the fort's thick walls, but only in 1526 it succeeded in overtaking the fortress, having 10 times more soldiers in numbers. However, in 1688, during the Great Vienna War, the Austrian army managed to retrieve this important strategic point. In 1694, the Turkish army tried to regain its position, but it was catastrophically defeated. The monarchy realized the importance of this position on the Danube, decided to demolish the existing fortress, and at that place build a new one, with, for that time, the most modern way of building forts. In 1699, the last year of the Great Vienna War, a few kilometers from Petrovaradin, in Sremski Karlovci, the first round table in the history of diplomacy was held. The Peace Chapel was the place where the treaty between the Turks and the alliance was signed, and by that the 17 years long war was ended. Although the restitution of the new fortress was going on until 1780, the Turkish army's worst defeat was at Petrovaradin's Falls in 1716, when 150,000 soldiers, due to Eugen Savoyski's magnificent tactics, were defeated in 4 hours, and the great Turkish ruler died. In 1790, the fortress had anti-torpedo system, that is to say 16 kilometers long underground military galleries, and its armament had 400 artillery machines, which was an impressive number at that time, and the best defense of the fortress in Europe. During the 18th and 19th century, the Petrovaradin regiment's units were involved in 30 wars and over 140 combats, which Austria led throughout Europe. At the end of the 19th century, the Austro-Hungarian monarchy was confronted with a revolution, and because of the anti-revolutionary movement led by Josip Jelačić, on June 12, 1849, Novi Sad was almost completely destroyed by an open artillery fire from Petrovaradin fortress. At the beginning of the 20th century, during the First World War, some of the fortress rooms were used as Austro-Hungarian monarchy camps, where over 2,000 people were imprisoned and dozens of prisoners were shot. In the fortress dark chambers, even Josip Broz Tito was in custody, a corporal for Austro-Hungarian monarchy at that time, and later the Marshal of the United Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. A few decades later, along with the breakdown of Yugoslavian kingdom and with the beginning of the Second World War on these territories, the independent Republic of Croatia took the Petrovaradin fortress under its control. During this time, special military units, the SS units and the anti-air attack units were located at the fortress, and a large number of unsuccessful operations were taken from there, against the partisans from Fruška Gora. The Petrovaradin fortress was set free on October 23, 1944. There is an interesting, not so famous but true story about Petrovaradin fortress. Namely, it was said to be blown up, but a man saved it. That man was forgotten by our people, and we never thanked him appropriately. We should be ashamed of ourselves.
20. oktobra 1944. su se Nemci naglo spremali za povlačenje sa namerom da po cijeloj tvrđavi razvuku eksplozivne mine i žice, tako da po njihovom odlasku bude uništena tvrđava. Međutim, nastala je neka pometnja u njihovim redovima, u rukovodstvu, i to je tamo iskoristio, neprimetno pobegao sa tvrđave, otišao je do jednog poznanika sa kojim se sprijateljio tokom boravka ovde. On je Anton Voraček, obavestio ga je o čemu Nemci imaju nameru, šta imaju nameru sa tvrđavom da urade, pa je zajedno sa Antonom Voračekom i sve još nekoliko dobrovoljaca vratio se na tvrđavu, sve su žice pokidali, demontirali te mine i tako spasli tvrđavu uništenja.
After the survival of all the wars, the fortress came upon a new problem. The problem was of silence and misunderstanding. Even though, after the Second World War, this magnificent edifice lost its original purpose and became mainly a cultural monument, a very little was invested in it. Valuable historical heritage was to be an attraction for tourists and a heaven for artists. But to accomplish this goal, a good strategy for development and investing means are needed. A rich historical treasure is disappearing in front of our own very eyes, and nobody's posing question why. Although there are certain art studios, a museum, bars, a restaurant and a hotel, it seems that much more is necessary for the fortress to get the glory it deserves. The Petrovaradin fortress, being the biggest preserved, if we can say preserved, European fortress, could be the biggest tourist attraction in Vojvodina and Serbia, if it is funded and an appropriate marketing campaign is run. It can offer the spirit of the past, for example with organized visits to the underground galleries, unbelievable view on the city, achieving an artistic impression with walks through the art studios and so much more. The music festival Exit organization has shown that Fortress has the capacity and its work. Exit made the first step in the Fortress promotion. Will we allow history to stay quiet? Will we set it free from the chains of silence? What about public ignorance? Will we give it the chance to represent us in the best light? Do we need it? Do we want it? Do we feel it? Do we love it? The Petrovaradin fortress resisted many wars and was always put in the winner's hands. The question is, can it resist peace?